What I want you to do in this class, if nothing else, is start challenging some of the simple assumptions you have. Education has to be a challenge, and I'm going to try to challenge you as much as I can. Challenge you to think. Isn't it wonderful that students have a sense of humor on the day of an exam? I think it's great. Look at this. Look at this guy. He's smiling.
This is the best 4 years of your life. I mean, everyone says it, and you got to make the best of these 4 years.
Actually, a majority of students now take more than 4 years, but the first one is often the toughest. New friends, new ideas, new challenges, new freedom. And freedom may be your biggest challenge of all. The freedom to study or not, the freedom to party or not, the freedom to find some sort of balance between academics and activities. The hardest thing so far is?
Definitely organizing my time. It's really hard to deal with all the freedom that I have, and I thought it was going to be great, and it is great, but it's also difficult to manage everything.
Your studies can also be difficult unless you learn the system.
I called home to my parents a lot crying. I didn't do well freshman year because I thought it was like high school where you just memorize everything, and it wasn't.
I found myself telling a lot of freshmen don't get discouraged because a lot of them do pretty badly the first semester.
In fact, 1/3 of all freshmen across the country drop out or transfer after their first year. Grades are a problem for some of them. For others, the social and emotional transition caused too much stress. Stress that freshman year survivors remember.
We're all in the same boat. No one knows anyone.
Oh, you always get homesick. That's just natural.
Before I came to school, I never had to share my room with anyone. I just had to deal with my brother on a daily basis. And here, I was thrown into a freshman dorm where I had to share a bathroom with 15 other girls.
So freshman year is about discovering, meeting new people, trying new things.
There were some temptations along the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, there's a temptation to go try everything.
A few weekends ago, I went to a party, a seniors party, and I had too much beer, and then I had too much liquor, and I mixed the two, and I got very, very sick. And I kind of learned my lesson.
Some students learn the hard way, and that can lead to lower grades and worse, as we'll see later. New horizons, new temptations, new distractions. It's an exciting yet sometimes anxious and uncertain time. What's it going to take to make it? You'll find out from today's college sophomores, juniors, and seniors. What was it like for you as a freshman?
Terrifying. I just had my campus map all the time. I didn't know my way around, and I didn't know anyone at the university.
How are you mixing in? I mean, how do you make new friends?
Mainly through the dorm.
Well, let's rip it.
One last post out.
Ready to go, bam, 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 let's go.
All the way for Kristen.
Kristen!
Made friends?
Lots of friends. My floor is like one big happy family. Meg, we need your fashion advice.
Megan, come in here.
Fashion advice.
I need my earrings back.
Some students meet people by pledging a fraternity or sorority.
It provided me with people to talk to, people to see all over campus, another support system, and it was fun.
There's fun to be had and new friends to be found all over campus.
Go, Georgetown!
Okay, so varsity sports may not be for you. Find something that is. Try intramurals, men's, women's, mixed. Really, it doesn't matter whether you're kicking a ball or bouncing it. Just get on a team and play, whether it's first string forward or first chair violin. Wherever your talents or interests lie, just do it.
This one did it. That one did it. This one, that one, this one, that one.
Student theater is another place to meet people. It's worked for Lisa and Paul and other members of the cast.
I've always enjoyed theater. I did some in high school.
More than anything, you've got to be involved when you get to college. You know, do theater, do music, play a sport, just anything.
I've been involved in a lot of activities, and it always seems like I do better then because I'm forced to plan my schedule.
Studies show that freshmen who join a club, a team, or get involved with some other school-sponsored activity are more likely to have a successful freshman year, stay in school, and graduate.
Hello, may I speak to Jen Smith, please?
But no matter what you do, you may find there will be those moments when you'll miss home. You came a long way. Did you call home very often?
Yeah, yes, I did. I called every 3 days. Not only did I call my parents, I called friends, and I called people at home that I really didn't call when I was at home, just to hear a voice from home. You'll be very homesick, especially me being almost 2,000 miles away from home. It'll be a very frightening experience at first.
How'd you get over it?
Well, basically, I just kept focused, and I kept on my work, and I established friendships here, and that made the process much easier.
You definitely miss all your friends. You miss your family. You miss just being in a safe place that's comfortable and warm and usual.
How do you get over that?
Oh, you meet new people. You start to adjust. You become more independent.
My roommate and I were both very homesick last year. I think it's a lot worse for girls than it is for guys, but usually if you make friends, then you're okay and you can just talk to them and stuff. But I called my parents every single day. The first 3 weeks, I'd go, Mom, I want to come home. This is terrible. And but I got through it, and I met people, and I had a good time.
What was the toughest part about going from high school to college?
I think utilizing my time wisely. I found when I got to college I had a lot more free time and time to hang out and do things, and time management was real important.
Budgeting your time, that would be the toughest.
Biggest surprise for your freshman year is?
How to balance your time.
And it was the first time away from parents, which was a difficult transition. And I think it's having all that free time and autonomy and no rules.
You've been here a couple months.
Yeah.
How do you like it?
It's very difficult. It's a lot harder than high school, but I'm enjoying it.
What's harder?
The course load. Actually, I guess it's the kind of parent thing. When you're in high school, you always have your parents, it's time to do this, it's time to do that. But now everything's up to you. So it makes it a little difficult.
And you don't have your mom to wake you up anymore. I noticed that. I missed a week of class, and then, it just killed me.
It's harder to buckle down and do what I know is right because there's so many enticing things and so many things I want to do. It's really hard.
I mean, I was doing in my freshman year about 10 different activities. I was on student council. I was also trying to help out the Speakers Bureau and doing a radio show and television show on campus television.
You were busy.
Very, very busy.
When did you have time to study?
That became one of the problems, actually.
There's so much to do here. You have to know when it's time to play and when it's time to do work. And I think that's the most important thing incoming freshmen need to realize.
You just have to organize your thoughts and prioritize your classes and figure out what's important, and then figure out when you're going to do it and when you're going to buckle down.
Just try and find a little niche and stick to your schedule and try and make full use of your time through organization.
Try using a schedule showing when you're in class and when you plan to study.
Making an outline like that really helped because you saw when your classes were and when your free time was and what was available to you. And you also realized how much you were and were not studying.
When you're between classes, it's tempting to just hang out and talk. But if you keep an eye on the time and use some of it to hit the books, that takes the pressure off the evening study schedule. The first day of class is important because it could be your last. After the first week at most schools, you can drop the course and add another. It's often referred to as drop and add. And dropping a course is something to consider if you decide the professor or course material isn't for you.
Okay, now, you want to drop these two for sure?
I didn't know that you could drop and add when I came, and I wasn't judging the teachers, and I had to learn how to do that, and I think it's important to do that when you're going into class.
Now, let me go rapidly over your syllabus.
Here are a few telltale signs to look for that first week of class.
Number one, killer syllabus.
Lots of reading.
Yeah, lots of reading, heavy papers, that kind of thing. It's best to kind of just ease into it, not get drowned in classwork.
Your freshman semester.
Yes.
We've got 2 Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, 1 at 10 and 1 at 12.
I'm not suggesting you sign up for easy classes. You are here to learn, and one killer syllabus probably won't hurt. But some freshmen get stuck with several of them. Why? Because they have a load of introductory courses. So when you get to class, carefully read the syllabus.
And you'll see each week it tells you what we're going to be looking at, and then it tells you what your reading assignments are.
Next stop, the campus bookstore, if you haven't been there already. Take a peek at the assigned books and a second look at the syllabus from each class. Think how you'll handle all the readings, the papers, the exams. But the workload is just one factor when considering drop an ad.
For me, I look for the professor's attitude, how enthusiastic the professor is about his particular subject.
Why haven't the Dutch people risen up against this tyranny?
Even if it's a class of 400, go in and just talk to him and get to know him.
Come on in, let's talk. Anytime.
If he's willing to talk with you, then that means he probably does care a lot more about the student.
Also consider not just what's being taught, but how.
Here's something that came out of the Washington Post.
I think you need to look at the teacher's personality, the way they teach. I mean, think about the way you learn. If they use a lot of pictures and photographs and slideshows, and you learn well by looking at pictures, then that's going to be positive for you.
One source of information about professors? Students who've gone before you.
And I asked all the seniors, what do you know about this professor and that professor? And I got who is good.
But you can get more than just senior scuttlebutt. At some schools, the students actually grade the professors.
They have a file here where you can look up what the kids thought about the professors. It's an evaluation form. And if you look that up, you know which professors are good.
Something else to know, at large colleges and universities, teaching assistants, TAs, often lead labs or discussion sessions, as well as grade exams. Some are better than others, and switching TAs may be possible.
Go to class. Definitely go to class.
Don't go to class, you're out of here.
There you go.
Go and you'll get through somehow.
Avoid the temptation of skipping classes.
You'll just go to class, you'll go a long way.
The best preparation for a test, I think, is to pay attention in class.
So, attend class, that's very important. I originally thought, I don't need to. And I found out very quickly that I was missing a heck of a lot.
You miss what the prof is stressing, what he or she thinks is important.
And I want you to focus specifically on just what the options are. Most professors go far beyond what is in the book. They try to give you the conceptual tools to deal with the information that's presented in your text. And if you miss class, you're missing those most necessary tools.
But you can't just show up. You'll have to pay attention. Did you sit in the front of the class or the back?
When I was a freshman, I sat in the back of the class. I used to hide back there and sleep and everything. But as you mature and you grow older, you realize you sit in the front, you get to know the teachers, you ask questions, and you learn more, and that's what class is all about.
Research indicates students who sit up front are more likely to stay alert and get better grades. Sit in the back and you'll have to make an extra effort to concentrate and not daydream. That's especially true if you're in a large lecture class common at major universities. Now when you're in class and you're taking notes, what are you listening for?
I'm listening for key points.
I think what the student should do is at least identify the major concepts and the major issues in notes. But does that mean horribly detailed writing as fast as you can? No.
I'm looking for the gist of the lecture, and what I see as being important, I write that down.
You have to take the highlights. You can't write down everything the teacher says. You can't write sentences either. It's mainly an outline of what's going on.
The temptation is to write down everything because it all sounds important. But if you go to class prepared, you'll have a much better idea of what's really worth writing down and what isn't.
Please do the readings before class. Now, I know I'm asking a lot, but you'll find that if you do the readings, you'll understand a lot more of what's taking place, and you'll get more out of the lectures. Because the lectures that I'm going to give assume that you know the material.
So if you go in class prepared, you have a much easier time taking notes, and you just listen to what they're saying, than trying to take down every note frantically, because it just doesn't work.
So it's going to be 3 exams. They cover the readings, and they also cover lectures.
Go to class, and it's easy to keep up with lecture notes, but the reading...
But the reading is the thing that always comes back to haunt me. It's the hardest thing to catch up on.
First semester's over. How did it go?
It went all right. Biggest thing changed from high school is the amount of reading that you have to do for exams and things, a lot more than high school. That was hard to get used to at first.
Of course, you're not just reading the book, you're studying it. And you have to make note of what's important, just as you do during a lecture.
When you do readings, unless you got photographic memory, it's impossible to really remember everything that you've read. but if you've got notes, you can see them and it will set off thoughts and memories.
I generally highlight, and I think that's a good way to work. If you rewrite things out of the book, it might take a little extra time. If you write things in the margin, that might be more helpful.
And if I find something really important, then I'll highlight it. And as I'm studying for the exam, I'll flip back through and I'll see these main highlighted points. It makes it a little bit easier.
There's often a tendency to underline or checkmark everything. Try to avoid that.
I highlight what I think is important. You know, sometimes I highlight a lot, sometimes I highlight a little, and then after you go through the notes and the class, you know what's important and what's not.
Something else to know, where and when you study can affect your grades as much as how many hours you study.
What was the best place to study for you?
Actually in my room.
But some rooms and roommates are quieter than others.
It didn't work in the dorm room.
No, you always have phone calls and people knocking on your door.
Where did I study best? Not in my room. I studied best in the quiet section in the library.
In fact, many students recommend studying at the library. And while you're there, find out what resources it offers, how it works, and how you can make it work for you.
I wasn't making full use of the library, which is right next door, and I was spending more time in the dormitory, which wasn't conducive to the study atmosphere. So you go to the library, it's quieter, you can stay there until the lights go out, and second semester, grades just went up.
Study where you feel comfortable, where you can concentrate, and when you're most alert.
I study best in the afternoon.
I am a late night person.
For me, it's the morning.
Of course, whenever you study, take a short break now and then, 10 minutes or so.
I usually break like every hour and a half or so, because if you sit there any longer than that, your mind starts wandering off in other directions.
Once you've finished an afternoon or evening of study, do something else to relieve the strain on your brain.
What do? You exercise. You hang out with your friends, you know, get your mind off of things. You might want to pick up a novel that you're reading, a magazine. Allot your time so that you know when you're studying and you know when you're not, so things don't start overlapping.
How did I deal with the pressure? I relied a lot on my friends who were also dealing with the pressure. I still kept close with my parents over the phone.
I mean, everybody gets a little stressed around finals time.
The anxiety's there. If you pace yourself and you learn the material, you'll do well.
There's pressure, but it's just on how you do things. If you give yourself enough time to prepare for things, then it's not gonna cause any trauma.
And the students who do pace themselves, who study each evening or each day, whatever their study schedule is, do not have problems with final exams.
Test anxiety, you get nervous before tests, or did you when you were a freshman?
A little bit, mostly just if I wasn't prepared. If I'm pretty well prepared, yeah, I'm not that nervous.
Yeah, if you're not prepared, there's good reason to be nervous.
Yeah, definitely reason.
As the prof hands out the final exam, you figure you're ready. You've crammed for it, pulled an all-nighter, in fact. Careful.
If you don't get any sleep, then sometimes you can misread a question.
They stay up all night, they read as much as they can, they come to the exam the next day, they're tired.
You look tired. You do too.
The sharpness of their mind is gone, and all the material that they studied all night for is garbled.
I went into a test, was very tired, not realizing that that was going to impede my work, and sat down, took the test, walked out of there, felt I did terribly. Couldn't understand why, because I had studied so hard the night before. Went home, slept 4 hours, woke up, remembered 5 questions off the test that just came to me, and I realized that sleeping was very important.
During the semester, you're reading material for the first time. But when you're preparing for a test, you're reviewing the subject. One technique that works is to rewrite your class notes and any book notes you've taken.
What I do is I sit down at a computer and I transcribe my notes and my reading notes together onto like a basic study sheet, just basic things you need to know.
Repetition is the way to learn.
When you write something down, it's easier to remember it than if you just read it.
I think you'll absorb it better and you'll concentrate more when you're rewriting your notes.
You'll flip through the books looking for the highlighted material.
And if you know it and you cite it in like your essays or whatever, they love you for it.
And it helps to study with someone taking the same course. Reading is passive. Conversation is active.
So did we all come to a conclusion?
When you verbalize your thoughts, it often helps you remember them for the test. Also remember that each subject has a language all its own. Jargon. Some professors stress it more than others. Listen for it in class. Look for it in your notes.
Do you find that some of them want the jargon repeated in the test when you write
Oh,
papers?
yes, absolutely.
You'll take more essay exams in college. How well you do can depend on your test-taking technique. Keep an eye on the time, of course, but use a few precious seconds to think before you write.
The best strategy for me is to read the question twice, write a few words on the test booklet, then write an outline.
You can't start writing right away because then you get all out of order and it's a disorganized essay and people aren't, the grader, the TA or the professor isn't going to know what you're trying to say. So I always try to make an outline.
And then you'll find it easier to do the essay. You'll do the essay much faster than you would if you happened to just jump into it because you'd miss certain points and you'd be like, oh my, you know.
And it'll be organized.
Yeah, it'd be very organized and you'll get a better grade.
The classroom is different. The way the teachers work is what they're asking from you is very different.
The type of classes that they'll take are asking different questions. We're trying to challenge students to use their mind, to think, to innovate, to deal with concepts. And most high schools don't train or teach students to do that.
The tests are different. It's not, teachers just don't want to know facts and know ABC. They want to know how you understand things and if you comprehend things.
You're going to get an A in this one, right? Good for you.
He just doesn't want you to regurgitate what you wrote down during the lecture or what you read in the book. He wants you to analyze. That's one thing about college. They teach you analysis.
It's no longer, tell me what the book said. It's, you know, think about the various concepts and how it applies to this unique situation. It requires thought. And most of our students are not trained to think on their own.
I had a lot of nights where I cried. A lot of nights you just studying and studying. I mean, 6-7 hours in the library for finals and midterms. And when you don't do well, it gets depressing. You say, what am I doing wrong?
I find that most students that are good students but are just having problems taking tests, by the third exam, they're really doing well.
This is part of the getting the hang of the college test?
Learning how to take a college exam. It's like anything else in life. You have to learn how to do it.
It doesn't always come easy, as Eric Watson remembered the day he graduated from the University of Maryland.
You may get all A's and all B's in high school, but college is a totally different picture. And you may think your study habits are good enough, but they're not, because I know. I came out of high school with a 3.8, and my first 2 semesters here, I got all C's.
And their first semester, they come with C's. Now, they're smart kids. They're good students. They just haven't learned the system yet.
A lot of stress I had.
Until you learned the system?
Until I learned how to take notes, until I learned how to study, how to read. When you learn how to do it, then it's a lot easier.
You have a little test anxiety, but after your first semester, you sort of get a feel for what the exams are like and the formats and teacher style.
And this is really your challenge. This is your commission, you know, to think about these things.
Keep up with what's going on. If you don't understand things, make sure you get help before it gets too late.
Do you guys have any questions? I think a student has to learn that professors are available and that you have to get over the fear of going and saying, I need help. You know, if you come with that idea, and not the day before the exam, that's when a professor doesn't want to see you, because he's saying, where were you, you know, when you're having problems?
Talk to people. Don't be afraid to talk to your parents, to the teachers. Say, how come I got a 50 in this test? I studied every night. I knew the stuff. Why? Then maybe the teacher will say, well, I didn't want you to memorize everything I told you. I wanted you to apply it. Bang. Then you know from there, okay, now I know how to study.
Case in point, when the second test was handed back in this class, 2 out of 3 freshmen scored much higher, a full grade higher on average than they had on the first test.
If you keep plugging at it and you keep speaking with the professor and understand what he's looking for, then you figure out the system and you work it out.
Is this your idea of a clean desk? Are you comfortable with a little clutter in your room? Or do you like the beds made and everything just so?
My roommate and I were just total opposites. She was on the messy side and I was a complete neatnik, so I didn't really get along with that too well.
And how do you feel about her bringing guys in all the time? Or a roommate who invites a crowd in to watch a video?
Now, what did he do that got on your nerves?
Well, he's a poli-sci major, and I'm an accounting major, and we just have 2 different ideologies completely.
Okay.
About what music and what clothes and everything.
Okay.
But we survived.
A little bit of flexibility and obviously get along. This isn't going to be like home. You know, you're sharing a space with someone else and they've got their own needs, their own habits, and you have to balance them out.
You have to be very open and honest and upfront with a roommate.
So once you talk to your roommates and got everything straightened out from the beginning, it was really a lot of fun.
Some people hit it off from the start, some don't.
I had a fairly bad roommate conflict, and it puts a lot of stress on your schoolwork as well, because if you can't live with the person, then you really don't have a place where you feel comfortable working or even living or even being around.
If you can't reconcile, find out what it takes to switch roommates. Drinking is the #1 problem among college students. 3 out of 4 drink, according to one study. Another study shows alcohol is a factor in 28% of the dropouts from college and 40% of all academic problems.
I never drank, so that might be some good advice for most people. That's how a lot of freshmen I saw got into a lot of trouble, was overdoing the alcohol thing.
Some students drink, drive, and die. Sometimes they kill others. The physical effects of alcohol include blackouts, vomiting, ulcers, liver disease, and that's the short list. Drinking also contributes to crimes against women.
A lot of the date rapes and unwanted pregnancies that occur after you've been drinking.
Meet Ann and Matt. They're peer educators, one of several teams of students at this school who warn freshmen about drinking and other hazards.
Your judgments are often clouded because you're not, after you've had a couple of beers, you're like, well, you don't really think of all your options.
Alcohol isn't just a drink. It's a drug, a party time pitfall you really don't need to have fun.
If you have a fun enough bunch of people who don't need alcohol, if you have good music and you have, chips and dip or whatever, have dinner, people can have fun. Believe it or not, people still can have fun without having alcohol.
He's right, of course, but he and other peer educators have a message for those students who will drink anyway. Drink less, they say, no matter what the pressure.
Peer pressure was something that we've always lived with. It's started out with clothes. It started out with who had the most go-bots. I mean, it's there, and now this is the highly evolved form of it.
Who had the most beers?
Who had the most beers.
Don't play the game, she says. Set a limit and stick to it.
And that's hard. I mean, that's hard for a college freshman. That's hard for anybody to do, because that's saying, asserting yourself within a group of your peers.
But you're on your own now, and you're in charge.
And say, I'm okay. I know me. I like myself. I can do this. I can make this decision and not feel like a dork or whatever.
It is your decision, and failing to act responsibly can lead to serious consequences. The right decision is to just say no to drinking and say no to marijuana and other illegal drugs. 27% of college students smoked pot in the past year, according to a recent study. Another study shows heavy pot users suffer academically, losing motivation and the ability to think clearly. Students hear about the physical side effects of smoking pot, but Matt's emphasis is pot is illegal, so you can't trust the person selling it.
It's not like, well, I can trust Joe because he's my friend and he's going to sell me good pot. People can put liquid PCP in your pot.
And that's just what happened to Matt's cousin.
Her pot was laced with PCP, angel dust, and she had no idea. She smoked it. She's been in and out at mental institutions for 2.5 out of the last 6 years. All right, her brain got smoked when she smoked that laced pot. Don't trust your best friend, because your best friend has no idea what's in your pot. It's like a crapshoot. You want to roll the dice. Maybe you get lucky 5 times in a row and you think you're a big winner, but you could roll the dice that one time, and you could be in the hospital in a irreversible coma. So it's a hard game to play, because when you lose big.
16% of college students have used other illegal drugs in the past year, drugs other than marijuana, drugs with side effects that include seizures, psychosis, paranoia, brain damage, and death.
45 minutes later,
Matt tells of a student who took a drug known as ecstasy.
This guy is now a vegetable in GW Hospital. Comatose. He has the brain of a puppy. All right? This is what can happen to you guys.
Same dorm, another night, another team, Bob and Shannon.
We're here to talk to you tonight about a sensitive subject, date rape.
Acquaintance rape means that you know the person that's raping you. Could be your neighbor, could be your boyfriend.
It's serious, and it does happen more than you think.
Nationally, more than 10% of college women have been victimized, according to one study. But the men and women involved often have far different views of what happened.
The guy may think everything's great, everything was fine, we had a great night, you know, I scored, but she was a little weird when she left, or she didn't call the next day. It's because in her mind it was rape. She didn't want it to happen, and it happened anyway, without her consent.
Alcohol is often, but not always, involved. She's been drinking, she's been on me all night. She wants it. What's the message that you have to tell the guys?
So she may want something, but she may not want it. She may not want sex.
Tell the guys to be aware that maybe she doesn't want it. Maybe she wants to fool around, but she doesn't want to have sex. She doesn't want to go all the way.
Date rape is serious, and as headlines show, sometimes controversial. Did she say no? Did she say yes? Does the woman have to give verbal consent? The circumstances that constitute date rape can vary from campus to campus and courtroom to courtroom. This session won't resolve the questions, but can change attitudes and behavior. Bob's advice to the men?
Sometimes when you're with someone, it's kind of a gray area. You don't often get explicit consent or explicit, a yes, and you have to be aware of how the other person's feeling. And it is difficult. Listen to what she's saying. Talk to her. And not only listen to what she's saying verbally, but listen to her body language. If you can tell when somebody's uncomfortable, if they're fidgety, or if they're not saying much, or they just feel like they want to get out of there, you know these things. Be aware of what the other person is thinking.
Shannon urges women to think about their sexual limits in advance.
If women especially just sort of think about it before they get themselves into that situation, how far they're willing to go, how much they want out of this, and know it in their own mind, it's a little easier to communicate it, first of all, and then it's a little easier not to back out on it and start second-guessing yourself.
It's important to know your limits, and it's important to realize the situation you're in.
Feel out a situation. If it starts feeling weird, either get out of there or just make sure you're definitely communicating what you want. And if the guy's not responding, then definitely get out of there.
And Shannon advises, you don't have to be quiet or polite about it.
Don't let it happen. Don't be afraid to make a scene once you're in that room and the door's closed and there are people in the hallway.
Ultimately, no means no. And that's what we want people to walk away with.
If she says no,
then she means no.
No is no. And, it doesn't matter how far you've gotten, and it doesn't matter, how far you think you might get, or how far you might get, if you just push her for 5 more minutes and then maybe she'll say yes. No is no, and that's where we have to draw the line, whether you're drunk or whether you're sober.
Students are urged to communicate, but that message can get garbled by alcohol and drugs. So among the steps women can take to reduce the risk of date rape, avoid alcohol and drugs. Stay in public places until you know your date a lot better. Go out in groups.
I try not to get myself in situations, I don't get myself in situations where I will find myself alone with people. I go in groups.
Finally, students are urged to get immediate medical attention and counseling in the event of a rape or other sexual assault. Another night, students are warned of the link between sex and AIDS, which is fatal. Nationally, 2 out of every 1,000 college students is HIV positive.
And that's something that we have to address. We have to let people know that, because they have to take steps to protect themselves.
Another protection issue is your personal safety at night, whether going to and from a party or the library. You walk around campus alone at night?
Actually, I don't find myself walking alone at campus at night. I get escorted, or I always find friends, or I call somebody to come meet me at the dorms.
Walking around at campus at night.
Don't do it. Don't do it unless you're with a friend. Don't go alone. Never go alone.
It's beyond the scope of this report to fully explore all the issues raised in this segment.
Come on,
Wait, just 1 second. Go ahead.
Our intention, like that of the peer educators, is to raise your awareness about the dangers that exist and to get you to think and talk about what you've heard.
Money. You're always poor. you write checks for 34 cents and very strange things.
Money, you know, it's tough. I had to get a job to get through for the little things like spending money.
Working to make a little spending money is fine, but working more than 15 hours a week will make it harder to keep up with your studies. Some students scrape by, others are well funded by parents, but almost everyone is on a budget, and that means balancing a checkbook. Now, how do you keep track of not overspending?
Ooh, that was tough. I'll tell you, that was definitely tough at first.
This is my first experience with a checking account. First semester, I overdrafted all the time.
If you have a checking account, keep up with it. Definitely keep up with it, because then you're going to get charged with a $25 bounce fee check and everything.
Did you bounce any checks?
Yeah, a lot actually.
It's really tough. You got to make sure you just put down whatever you spend down on your checking account book to make sure you keep up with it.
So eventually I learned that, and now I'm doing okay.
You just like allot a certain amount every week and just stick to it.
What's your secret now for money management?
Don't go near your account unless you've got to take it out. That's basically it, because there's always something you have to get. So just don't go near it unless it's 100% necessary.
And I don't like take it out unless I really, really need it.
You just have to discipline yourself.
So you walk around with just $2 in your pocket all the time?
I walk around with nothing in my pocket all the time. I don't have a money machine card. I just have a checkbook, and when I really need it, I will go to the bank and I'll get out the amount of money. I never carry cash on me because I'll just use it.
That's one way not to spend money, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it's a little drastic, but that's what I do. It works for me.
Some students do use money machine cards that are plugged into their hometown bank. Christina Spinelli goes to school in Washington, D.C. Her father helps manage the money from back home.
He has all my account numbers, and he goes to the bank in New York and he puts in the money or puts in checks that I get from work, and then I just take out the money here.
The machine won't give you a dime unless there's money in your account, and that's one way to control spending. Finally, a warning. While everyone may seem friendly, it's important to secure your valuables.
I've never had a problem with that. Just lock your door whenever you leave and everything like that.
I had my name printed in metal on all my valuables.
I have a word processor that's, I think it's insured. It's under my dad's name.
And whether you're riding a bike or driving a car, your parents should talk to their insurance agent about getting the right coverage. You've heard a lot of good advice from students who've been there. Still, some things you'll have to learn on your own.
You make some mistakes, don't worry about them, you survive it.
I think that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, freshman year is just a bunch of big experiments. You know, you're trying out being on your own, you're trying out new social situations, you're trying on different selves, trying to figure out who you are.
If you can get the hang of that, the fact that you're on your own, then I think you'll do all right.
It takes time, you meet people, you get adjusted, you learn how to study, you learn how to write papers, you learn how to do all the college things that college people do.
More than anything, you've got to be involved when you get to college. You know, do theater, do music, play a sport, just anything.
I would say try to be balanced. You're here not just for an education in the classroom. You're here for an education in life. But balance it. Go to parties. Go out on dates. Have a wonderful time. Study and learn.
You've heard from today's college students. Here's some advice from an old one. Have fun, but don't forget to study. Learn something, not just from the books and professors, but from the people around you. And perhaps most importantly, learn about yourself. Thanks for watching, and good luck.
Thank you.